just like that, we are live on the internet with Rich Specht. How you doing, Rich Specht?
I am spectacular.
Excellent. I am also fantastic.
That's spectacular.
It is, isn't it? I'm kind of jealous. Spectacular is kind of a cooler word than fantastic. It's a lot more fun. I've been thinking about changing it to terrific.
Terrific's good.
You think that's too over the top, though?
I'm terrific. I'm fantastic. I don't know. I think they're kind of.
Well, I think terrific is a less often used word, so it's fantastic. People hear it more often.
I would actually agree with that. So if you're looking for something that has, a little less usage, there.
I want people to pause and like really soak it in.
I feel like if I say I'm spectacular, that it's almost over the top.
Well, spectacular is the top of the mountain, I think, and I could switch that. I could do it in your honor, in honor of the Respect Life Foundation.
There you go.
It sounds spectacular.
I mean, I have way too much fun with my last name, so it's
right. If my last name was Specht, I would 100% use it. Like, I would have a spectacular tattooed on my chest. Like, it would be. It'd be great.
I've had way too much fun with my last name, and it worked out in terms of the message we're trying to get out for Reese. So, happy coincidence and all that. But even as a teacher, as a science teacher, it was great. I mean, the spectrum and that root word comes up in so many things. So it was, and the kids would have fun every time I did it. So
what? I mean, the things on your face.
Spectacles, yes.
Spectacles, yeah.
Well, I got that. That was when kids wanted to bully, I was Rich Spectacles. Yeah. So.
But yeah, I would get I'm spectacular, and then underneath it would be a portrait of my face winking with a thumbs up. Tattoo right there.
Like an animated picture of you winking?
Yeah, I'm spectacular, winking with a thumbs up. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. I made this one. Yeah. You wink with both eyes? Yeah. Yeah. Some people apparently can't do that.
I didn't. I was not aware. I didn't think that was a thing. Like, how could you not do both? I don't know.
Yeah, we can do both. First of all, condolences about the loss of your quasi stepfather.
I mean, it was my stepdad.
You always called him the boyfriend, so I didn't realize they were married.
That's because they only got married relatively recently. It was only the last couple of years they got married. And I think they had been hesitant to get married because of their age, and then just decided one day, like, you know what? We love each other. Let's get married.
That's cool.
So they did. And I was very thankful that my mom had those 15/16 years with him, and he made her happy. So that was, to me, that was the best thing I could say about him. Because the reason I qualified that he was such a great guy is because he was a really great guy, was because I didn't think anybody was good enough for my mom. So I think that was my psychological defense to remind myself that, wow, you actually let this guy in. So he'll be missed. And it was, it's tough. It's tough watching your parents go through something that I kind of, honestly, I said to my mom, I was very honest with her. I said, I feel this is almost the opposite of what happened with me and Reese. Like, she felt powerless to help me. And it's, it's your kid and you want to help them, and when they're hurting, and I was really honest with my mom, and she was honest with me too. This is interesting that I said to her when I got the call, I had known they both had COVID because I got it too. I left from the conference, I had COVID. So I don't know if I didn't get it at the conference because I was sick when I got home. I must have gotten it when I was visiting them, and they got it at the same time. So all three of us had it at the same time. And my mom had texted me the night before he passed away that they were both pretty sick, but okay, and, don't worry about us. And that was the last text I got. Although she said, Barry's not doing great. And I'm like, oh, God. And then I got the call that next morning, early in the morning, from my sister. And I knew, when I went to go answer the phone, I knew it was one of them. And when my sister said Barry, I told my mom I felt guilty. I was relieved. My first thought was relief because it wasn't her. and I told her I felt guilty about that. And my mom said that, and she was completely honest with me. And I think this is interesting. It tells you what a child means to a parent. Uh, that when I had called her after Reese passed away, I was so hysterical when I was speaking to her. She didn't recognize it was me. And I said, Richie passed away. And she thought she thought someone was talking about me. And she lost it. And I remember hearing her crying. I remember her, like, she was inconsolable. She dropped the phone, and Barry actually picked up the phone. And I had to tell Barry, this is Richie. It's Reese. It's Reese. Because I always called him Richie. I never called him Reese, ever. It's only until after he passed away that I referred to him as Reese. Because I was the only one who could get away with calling him Richie, because there was no confusion. I know who I am, right? So, so my mom said that when Barry told her, no, it's not your son, it's your grandson, that she was relieved. But she had a sense of relief, and then she felt guilty about it. But I'm like, I totally get it. And I told my mom, I get it. And it's I had that same thing. Like, I felt bad that Barry passed, and I truly did come to love him, right? But I was relieved it wasn't her. So, but she's doing okay, and we move on. That's life, right? So life is full of these ups and downs, and try to remind my kids it's the bad stuff that helps you to really recognize how important the good times are. So,
I heard a great Doctor Who quote. I've heard the last people underappreciate the 12th Doctor, the Peter Capaldi. He's really.
And I never really watched those, so that's the one I haven't really watched.
And I think he's up there with the best of them. I really do. I think he's really good. And he had a little bit of a rough start. They all do. You got to get used to each of them. But he was, he lost someone close to him, and someone brought it up, and he was having a rough time, and he was telling somebody that everything ends, and it's always sad,
right?
But he goes, but also, everything always begins, and that's always happy, and they usually go together.
Yeah, that's right. The cycle of life, right? So There's the cycle. And by the way, speaking of that cycle, I happened to meet a parent yesterday at one of my high school talks who was in the beginning of that cycle. I had just heard him. He was talking to the other assistant principal, talking about his newborn son. And I overheard it, and I was like, oh, I'm going to go talk to him. Now, I was speaking at the school. The topic is kindness. That's usually what I'm speaking about when I go to, especially, I don't really do water safety with the older schools. So he didn't know who I was, just knew that I was a speaker and knew I was talking about kindness. Knew nothing else. There was no other context in the conversation. And so I went up to him and I said, I heard you had a baby. Is it your first? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, it's so exciting. And he's like, yeah, and it's nerve-wracking too. And I was like, oh, yeah, it is. I'm like, you're bombarded with all the things you got to worry about now. And he's like, yeah, it's nothing but worries. And so I kind of just asked him off the cuff. I'm like, so what are some of your worries? And, things that you're afraid that, are a danger. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, this is the perfect opportunity, right? Here's my untampered, sample. And he starts talking about some stuff, and not once does water safety come up. And I put it out there. I'm like, what are some things that you think could be a threat? And, he's like, hot car death and car accidents. And I forget what else. Those two stuck out. I think he just said an accident in general. And I'm like, what the number one likely thing to take your son's life from you is? And he's like, no. And I'm like, it's drowning. And he gave me the same look I constantly get. Like, what? Like, oh, I know drowning. He's like, but really? It's not. I'm like, it's number one. It is number one. And I was like, and after he's 5, it'll be the number 2 most likely thing to take them from you. So I asked him, I said, do you have a pool? And he goes, oh, yeah, we have a pool. I'm like, do you have a fence around it? Nope. He's like, it's an above ground pool. You know, we have the ladder. I'm like, you still need a fence. And so when I did my talk, I start the talks off, and in the first slide of my talk has our logo, Cultivate Kindness, and then the next one is Lifesaver Pool Fence, because you guys are our sponsor. So I always thank the sponsor, and I tell the kids the stats, and I let them know that drowning is the #1 cause of death of children under 5. And he came up to me right after. He goes, "What's the website?" And I'm like, poolfence.com. And so hopefully that's one. But even the kids that I spoke to, a bunch of them came up to me afterwards. And it had been a while since I've done a high school. I mostly do middle schools and elementary. So I love getting into the high schools. But the kids came up to me too. And then it kind of blew me away, the number of the kids that came up to me talking about how they were drowning adjacent, that they had families that had, you know, or family members who'd been affected.
I hear that all the time.
Yeah. Yes. And that kind of blows me away too. It's like when you have a group of people and then you realize, well, yeah, if it's the #1 cause of death of kids under 5, there's going to be a lot of that. You know, I don't think it's 6 degrees of separation. I think it's a lot less.
Right. Well, I figure if 300 toddlers drown a year and 700 kids drown a year, right? So over 10 years, that's 7,000. If each of those knows, you know, 100 people, that's 700,000 people who are affected by drowning, you know.
Right.
It's a lot.
So, yeah. And especially when you're in a pretty populated area like, you know, New York or California or Texas or Florida, which is obviously where, you know, your hotspots are to begin with, because that's where the population is. So, yeah, it's still, I still find myself incredibly frustrated by the fact that people just, they are genuinely surprised. And I keep trying to drive home this idea that it's the ignorance that's the problem. And I keep saying I'll die on that hill, but I will, that we've got to get the word out there first and advocate for that first and foremost before we start talking about anything else. Get the word out first, and everything else will follow.
Thankfully, today is a great day for that, because doesn't a new law take effect today?
Yeah. So we have the law that was signed into law in New York State on October 26th, which is the hospital video bill for water safety. So every parent that has a child in New York State hospitals will have to watch the video that talks about water safety and drowning prevention, and the fact that drowning is the #1 cause of death of kids under 5. And the video does feature Samantha and I sharing Reese's story as hopefully a warning to the parents. And you know, I hope that our story in particular comes across as genuine for the parents, because you know, I did ask someone to watch my son. Like I tried to do everything I thought I could do to keep my son safe, as to what I knew then, right? And I told that father yesterday, I said, here's the thing. If I knew what I knew now, my story never gets told, because I stopped it. It never happened. And I wouldn't have known either, because that's the thing about prevention, is that you really can't quantify it, because unless you caught it in action, unless you have video of the fence stopping the kid, or unless you have video of the kid falling into this body of water and then using self-rescue, then you don't have, you're not going to know that the prevention worked. And that's so, there's no consistency to that type of data reporting. So, yeah, it's really hard to quantify prevention, which is why education is so important. And I know I keep saying it, and I'm a broken record, but I'm that broken record for a reason, because one of the best ways to teach something is repetition. So I'll keep doing it. I'm going to keep going and keep letting people know what I think and why I think education is so important. And again, why I'm so impressed by what you guys do, because you recognize the importance of that. So I wish more companies would. I wish more that were in this space recognize how important it is to be that first and foremost, and then everything else falls into place. So
I think so.
Yeah, it's kind of a given. But I don't. Obviously, it's not It's not widely understood, though, because of the number of people, including the governor of New York State, who were shocked to hear that drowning is the number one cause of death of kids under 5. So here we are, constantly doing this. And, when we were at the Lifesaver conference a couple of weeks ago, and Paul DeMello pulled up his motorcycle that has the names of all the kids that have been lost. And it's not, I can't say all the kids. It's the kids that it's been shared, and it's really just a drop in the bucket. And I look at that motorcycle and realize that, that motorcycle is completed, but
it's full. I mean, he couldn't fit another name on there.
Right. And so what are we going to do now? Like grab a Sharpie and start adding names? Like you can't. And that's the problem, is that we keep adding more and more names, and the percentage that it's changing is basically zero. I mean, we're at an equilibrium, and we're at an equilibrium where we're number one, and that we don't want to be number one. So, I know they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And I kind of feel like at this point we are doing the same thing over and over again, and that's why the results are what they are. We may be this, like, without the efforts that we're putting in right now, then the numbers go higher. But everything we're doing now is everything that just maintains that equilibrium. And so something needs to disrupt it. And obviously I don't want a disruption in the other direction. So what is that disruption? I got to get word out to the kids. I think if you have the 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds today who are getting these programs, who are learning it, they'll be adults before you know it, who are having kids, and it's second nature for them to do this. So,
well, I'm trying to fence every pool on Earth.
Yeah. Well, and I remember you telling me someone had asked you, like, well, what happens when you've fenced every pool?
Great.
Right? Great. It's like, that's what I want.
Yeah, I'll find something else to do. I'm okay. It'll be fine.
Yeah, and then here's the thing: there'll be more pools after that too, because
they build pools every day. Yeah,
right. So it's the unattainable goal, but let's get there. So, and the only way to get there,
if we had 50%, it'd be huge. It'd be staggering.
You'd be one of the biggest companies on the planet.
Yeah, if even half. Because I think I don't even know the percentage of pools that are fenced. It's got to be single digits.
Yeah, you're probably right, unfortunately. So, and if you took like real safety fencing too, not just like,
yeah, I mean like a pool barrier around a pool, probably 1 or 2%.
Yeah, which that's got to change. So
it has to.
Swim lessons got to change.
Love it.
Hopefully the hospital safety video is a good first step, and I know I'm really happy about it. I'm honored that they wanted to include Samantha and I in it. That even when they had a chance to redo it, they still wanted us, which is great. And there's a new bill actually now in the legislature for compulsory water safety education. So that's our next step. So hopefully we get there too.
I like your pullover.
Thank you. I got this pullover at the conference, and it really hasn't come off of me since. I love it.
They're really cool. They're really nice.
It really is. But do you want to know something funny?
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, people don't look at logos.
No, nobody does.
I was in Stop and Shop, which is our local grocery chain, and their colors are similar, but not the same. But I guess they have a similar type of. And 3 different times yesterday shopping, someone stopped me and asked me if I could help them.
That's funny.
And they're like, "Do you work here?" I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Oh, I was just looking at your jacket." I'm like, "Do you see what it says?"
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh yeah, I didn't." I'm like, "Okay." So, yeah.
People don't read.
So they recognized it as something, but didn't like. Okay, I work here. So.
But their brain stopped halfway. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I look like someone who works at the grocery store. So. But, yeah. So, thank you. I love my swag. So.
Well,
I know we have to cut short today, but at least we got something in today.
I apologize. Will you be around for Jeopardy time?
I should be.
Because Mike isn't here, but yeah, if you're here instead, we'd feel comfortable like going without him. So.
Oh yeah, you're gonna roll without Mike, huh?
Well, yeah, he's not here. But But so we try not to, if all three, because the streak is so long now, we don't want to like,
you don't want to kill it.
Right. Yeah. If not all here, but if you're around, I think we'd be okay.
I don't have anything today. Hold on. I'm just going to check quick. I don't have anything. So I can join you today. So if you want to do it and you want to roll without Mike, I'll be his fill-in.
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it.
All right.
So I'll save you until Jeopardy today then.
Get 3.
All right, we'll see you then.
Bye everyone.
All right, bye-bye.